I thought they were just some ugly stickers stuck on a fence. Bright yellow, kind of obnoxious, but I didn't think much of it. Official-looking stuff doesn't usually star drama, right? Except in my neighborhood, where our HOA president, Gloria, treats every blade of grass like it's competing in a parade. So when she saw those stickers one morning, yeah, things didn't go the way you'd expect. I didn't plan to get involved. Honestly, I didn't think I had to. But what happened next? It went way past neighborhood politics. You ever see someone unravel over something they didn't even try to understand? Drop your story in the comments. Seriously, I need to know it's not just us. This is QA Stories, and it gets interesting. I never thought a fence could wreck someone's entire life. But here we are. My name's Connor Blake. I'm 35. I design electrical systems for a living. Logic and problem solving are my thing. Probably why what happened next drove me completely insane. I live in one of those planned communities. You know the kind. Every blade of grass is regulation height. Every mailbox matches. It's fine, I guess, if you're into step forward vibes. What I wasn't prepared for was Gloria Whitlow, our HOA president and quite possibly the most controlling person I've ever met. Sometimes I wonder if these communities were designed by someone with OCD and a God complex. Gloria fits both. She's 58, used to be a real estate agent, and acts like she personally designed every house on the block. When she walks around, it's like watching a general inspect the troops. Everything has to match her vision. And God help you if you disagree. Looking back, I should have known she was trouble when she introduced herself by handing me a laminated 12-page booklet of community standards. Laminated? Who does that? Unless they plan to enforce those rules like they're federal law. The whole mess started with our shared fence. Now, I'm not one to complain about small stuff, but this thing was falling apart so badly, it was causing actual damage to my property. Rainwater was seeping through the rotted boards and flooding my garden. It wasn't just ugly, it was causing structural issues. I was paying out of pocket to fix water damage. The fence sat right along the property line between Gloria's backyard and mine, meaning we were both responsible for it. Or so I thought. I brought it up at the HOA meeting in March, expecting a simple neighborly discussion. Gloria, I've been having issues with water damage from our shared fence. I was hoping we could talk about getting it repaired. She barely looked up from her notes, waved me off like I just asked her to solve global warming. That's such a minor issue, Connor. Why bother me with something like that? I stared at her, wondering if she'd even seen the fence lately, or if she just didn't care about anything outside her perfect rose garden. Next month, I came back with photos. Shots of the damage, the water pooling against my house, the ruined garden. She glanced at them for all of 2 seconds and said, "You probably caused it yourself. Sprinkler system or something." Didn't even hide the annoyance in her voice. I had to literally pause and collect myself. Like, really? I caused the boards to rot with sprinklers? I stood in front of the fence that night, trying to rationalize her logic. Was I gaslighting myself? April? More excuses. No budget this quarter. May? Classic. Not a priority right now. By June, I was frustrated beyond words. So, I did what any logical person does when the system fails them. I started researching. Every evening, I was online, reading county codes, property maintenance laws, HOA loopholes. I didn't know if reporting to the county would land me in hot water, but Gloria's attitude was pushing me toward doing something drastic. Then came the storm in late June. Torrential rain, water pouring through the fence like a busted dam. My garage flooded again, and I realized Gloria was never going to help me. So at midnight, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the county's code enforcement website, mouse hovering over the submit complaint button. Was I making an enemy? Absolutely. But I just dropped another plumber invoice in the trash. The damage was real. I clicked submit. The next morning, I called to follow up. The inspector, Johnson, said he'd be out in a few days. 3 days later, Johnson shows up. Mid-50s, no-nonsense energy. Probably seen every neighborhood feud in the book. He took one look at the fence and shook his head. "This is definitely a code violation," he said. Finally, someone who took it seriously. He walked the fence, pointed out every problem I'd flagged for months, snapped photos, took measurements, documented everything. Then came the moment. He pulled out these neon yellow stickers. Official notices. I watched as he stuck them onto the worst sections of the fence. Bright yellow with black text, county seals, legal language. Unmissable. These stay up until repairs are made and re-inspected, he said, slapping one right in Gloria's line of sight. From my kitchen, I had a perfect view. I knew she'd see them, and part of me thought, maybe this is the wake-up call she needs. Turns out, I was so wrong. The next morning, I'm sipping coffee when I hear Gloria's back door slam. She's watering her roses like always. Then she sees them. She freezes mid-pour, stares at the stickers like they were alien parasites. Then she walks over, inspects them, and instead of reading the text, or doing literally anything reasonable, she mutters, "What is this garbage?" and starts peeling them off point one by one. Carefully, like she's removing tags from new furniture. She wads them up and drops them into her decorative trash, like it's no big deal. Glances around to see if anyone's watching. At one point, she even smiles, like she just cleaned up the world's ugliest mess. I should have shouted, but I was frozen. It was like watching someone casually commit a crime and smile through it. When she went back inside, humming like she'd won, I walked out and checked the trash. There they were, every sticker, crumpled but readable. I collected them all, took photos of the bare fence spots, smoothed the stickers out on my kitchen counter like puzzle pieces. Bright yellow warnings. Like evidence. Was I being petty? Maybe, but something told me I might need them. That night, I looked it up. Turns out, removing county enforcement notices? Actually illegal. Not just frowned upon. Not just a slap on the wrist. Fines. Real violations. The woman who writes people up for 2 inches of overgrown grass had just broken the law herself. As I watched her walk back inside, humming like she'd fixed the world, one question kept echoing in my mind. Should I tell her, or let her find out the hard way? About a week later, Gloria's outside, pacing and making phone calls. Her voice carries. I hear frustration. Snippets like, "County left trash on my fence." Unauthorized stickers. Don't even know what this is. She had no clue. She still hadn't read them. And that's when I realized she wasn't unraveling because of what the stickers meant. She was unraveling because they didn't fit. Bright yellow? On her fence? Unacceptable. And that, my friends, is how an HOA president broke the law over a fence because the warning didn't match the color scheme. Stay tuned. This isn't even the end that I couldn't help but smirk, thinking about how she probably called to complain about those ugly stickers without realizing what they actually were. What I learned later made the whole situation even more absurd. Turns out, Gloria had already been flagged in the county system for a previous false complaint she'd filed about tree trimming services supposedly destroying her precious landscaping. County staff had her marked down as a difficult complainant. So when she called about the stickers, no one really wanted to deal with her. They kept transferring her around, brushing her off, which must have driven her insane. This from the same people who fined me for having a faded mailbox. And now their queen bee was caught up in an actual legal mess. The irony? Beautiful. But the real shock came about 10 days later. I'll never forget what happened on Gloria's front porch. Her house always looked like it was ready to be photographed for a real estate brochure. Perfect lawn stripes, color-coordinated shutters, tasteful solar lights. But that morning, the picture-perfect illusion cracked. I was in my home office when I heard her front door slam so hard it rattled my windows. That was totally out of character. Gloria was usually measured in every move, always concerned with appearances. I looked outside and saw her standing on the porch, holding what looked like an official envelope, staring at it like it contained the launch codes. Her face had gone completely pale. That was saying something, considering how composed she normally was. This woman, who never had a single hair out of place, suddenly looked like she'd seen a ghost. Right there on the porch, she tore open the envelope. I watched her expression shift, confusion, then shock, then something close to panic. She read the letter twice, then looked around like someone who just realized they'd tossed out a winning lottery ticket by mistake. She kept glancing between the letter, the fence where the stickers had been, and my house. It wasn't anger on her face, not annoyance either, just raw confusion and a creeping sense of horror. I couldn't see the letter, but her body language screamed it. She'd been caught. I remembered something she'd said at an HOA meeting months ago, how she was forced to sell her last house because the HOA there went after her over a fence color violation. She called it the Great White Paint Massacre. I thought she was joking. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe ever since then, she swore never to be forced out again. Maybe that's why she grabbed the rule book so tightly. And now, here was again, ironic justice slapping her square in the face. Those ugly stickers she'd peeled off, they were about to send her packing once more from the fortress she thought was untouchable. I eventually found out what the letter actually said. And honestly, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. The county had sent her an official notice for removing county warning stickers without permission. It came with a hefty fine, no small penalty either. The notice explained that tampering with official county postings was a municipal code violation. Each day the issue remained uncorrected. The penalties grew, compounding daily like credit card interest. Since she'd yanked off several stickers and left the fence in violation, the fines were stacking up fast. Gloria spent the rest of the day on the phone, pacing around, and I could hear the rising frustration in her voice from my backyard. "What do you mean I can't just pay a fine and make this go away?" she shouted at someone. "They're just stickers. How can stickers have legal power?" At that point, I had to stop weeding my garden because I was trying not to laugh out loud. Here was the woman who had spent years lecturing everyone about following community rules, and she genuinely couldn't grasp how government regulations applied to her. The mental gymnastics she was doing to avoid accountability were Olympic level. The next morning, I checked the mail earlier than usual. Curiosity got the better of me. She was already outside, probably waiting. When she spotted me walking to the mailbox, she made a beeline for the fence line. She looked exhausted, like she'd been up all night trying to figure out how to undo this mess. "Connor," she called out, and her voice had this sharp edge to it. Nervous, not commanding. Not like her. "I got this letter from the county about some stickers," she said, holding up a notice like it was a subpoena. "Did you see anyone putting stickers on our fence?" Her voice had this pleading tone, like she hoped I'd tell her it was all some mistake. I looked at her, still not putting together her actions and the consequences, and I almost admired her commitment to denial. Part of me wanted to break it to her gently, but another part, still bitter from months of ignored repair requests and garage leaks, decided to stick to the facts. "I saw Inspector Johnson here last week," I told her calmly. "He mentioned code violations and said he was posting warning notices." The look on her face was priceless, like a kid realizing the cookies they stole were laced with chili powder. She asked if I knew anything about county procedures. I explained that the notices had to stay up until the violations were resolved and re-inspected. "But what if someone removed them? By accident?" she asked, and the way she emphasized accident made it sound like she'd rehearsed that line. She looked me dead in the eye, across the fence, not angry, just calculating, trying to figure out what I knew. I knew this wasn't over, but I had no idea how much further it would go. Later that day, while I was halfway through repotting a basil plant, someone started pounding on my door like they were serving a search warrant. My first thought wasn't Gloria. It was, who the hell knocks like that? That evening, around 7 p.m., Gloria was at my front door. No doorbell, just loud, desperate knocking that echoed through the house. When I opened the door, she stood there, all seriousness. The polished, professional HOA president was gone. In her place was someone who looked like they'd been at war all day and lost. "Connor, we need to talk," she said, stepping closer without waiting for permission. "I think you know what this is about." From the way she said it, you'd think I'd committed treason, not simply reported a fence issue. I invited her in, mostly because I was curious where she planned to go with this. She didn't sit, even when I offered, just stood there in my living room, scanning everything like she was filing it all away for future HOA violations. I've told stories like this on QA forums before, but this one felt different. Personal, like watching someone's entire worldview crumble in real time. "This county thing," she began, pulling the fine notice out like it was a murder weapon. "You called them, didn't you? You went behind the HOA's back. You didn't follow proper channels." I let her rant, my eyes focused on a chip in my coffee mug. One more word about proper channels, and I was going to crush the cup in my hand. I had to take a breath. Seriously, proper channels for a broken fence? And I'm the villain here? Gloria, I brought this up at 4 HOA meetings. I reminded her, keeping my voice level. Each time, you said it wasn't a priority or wasn't in the budget. Meanwhile, that broken fence was causing water damage to my property. She shook her head like I was missing some crucial detail. Like she had a secret rule book I wasn't privy to. There are proper channels, Connor, she snapped. You can't just go to the county whenever you disagree with an HOA decision. I stood there listening to her preach about protocol while she'd ignored my legitimate safety concerns for months. The irony was thick enough to slice. Then she said something that truly caught me off guard. Something that showed me who she really was. I'm going to make sure you can't live peacefully in this neighborhood, she told me, pointing her finger right in my face. You think you're clever, going around me like this, but you have no idea what you've started. I didn't respond immediately. In that moment, it became crystal clear she wasn't here to resolve anything. She was declaring war that I wasn't planning to fight back. Not at first. Not until I saw the anonymous email Gloria sent to all residents accusing me of fabricating county stories. That was the moment something shifted. If she wanted a war, I wasn't going to play defense anymore. I gathered everything. The sticker photos, the county letters, the excerpts from city regulations, and the video of Gloria peeling the stickers off herself, and sent them out in a single email blast to all residents. Subject line, for transparency. I didn't add commentary. Didn't need to stir the pot. The truth would speak for itself. Then I waited. 10 minutes later, I watched her storm out of her house. She was dialing her phone frantically, her face pale, like someone who just had their internet cut off mid-conference call. That's when I knew the shot had landed. Honestly, I hadn't planned to argue. I figured the conversation would be awkward, but civil. But then she pointed her finger in my face and my front door, and something inside me snapped. It felt like being back on the playground with the school bully. Only this time, I wasn't 10 years old. Gloria, I followed the proper procedure, I said, louder than I probably needed to. I brought this to the HOA multiple times. You ignored it. The system is working exactly like it's supposed to. She didn't like that one bit. She launched into a speech about community standards and how my actions reflected poorly on the neighborhood. Do you know what it looks like when county inspectors are crawling all over our community? She demanded. Do you know how that affects property values? I stood there listening to her lecture me about property values, while the water damage from her neglected fence was literally affecting my property value. The irony was almost beautiful. This woman was more upset about the optics of inspectors showing up than about the actual problems they were here to fix. So what would you have done? Let her keep blaming you? Or push back? What really got to me was how she twisted everything to make it my fault. Like I was some unreasonable neighbor who'd escalated things unnecessarily. According to Gloria, I should have been more patient. Should have trusted the HOA process. Should have understood that fence repairs weren't an emergency. These things take time, Connor, she said, like I was a kid who didn't understand how the adult world works. You can't just expect immediate results every time you have a minor complaint. Minor complaint. We were talking about structural damage to my house. I just stared at her for a second. The conversation was going nowhere, and I could see Gloria's frustration mounting. She wasn't used to people standing up to her. Wasn't used to problems she couldn't solve by issuing a violation notice or scheduling a committee meeting. You've made this personal, Connor, she said, walking toward the door. And now I'm going to have to make it personal, too. I followed her outside, part of me to make sure she left, but mostly because I was curious. What did she mean by that? That's when things got strange. Instead of going home, she stopped at the community mailbox area and pulled out her phone. She started taking pictures methodically, deliberately. Not random snapshots. She was documenting something. Then she opened an app and began typing notes, scanning the mailbox area and the community entrance like a detective working a case. She squinted at a lamppost like it had personally insulted her. I'd never seen someone weaponize a smartphone with that kind of quiet intensity. I watched for 5 minutes, maybe longer, just standing there, documenting, looking back at my house every so often. She started walking home, then turned back, stopped again at the mailbox, pulled her phone out one more time, and took notes while staring straight at my window. That was the moment I wondered if I was the one walking into a trap. What was she planning? What had she been documenting? Why did it suddenly feel like the roles had reversed? In the days before the monthly HOA meeting, it felt like Gloria was preparing for war. She made rounds to different neighbors, having hushed conversations that stopped when I got close. I'm not usually paranoid, but when the HOA president is clearly campaigning against you, you notice. I could see her confidence growing with every conversation. She was lining up supporters, probably telling everyone she was going to show what happens when residents don't follow proper procedure. I'm going to show everyone what happens when someone embarrasses the community. I overheard her telling Mrs. Patterson down the street. She acted like she had some kind of ace up her sleeve, some devastating piece of evidence that would prove I was the villain. So I asked to have my fence issue added to the meeting agenda, partly to finally address it, mostly because I wanted to see what Gloria had planned. The community center was lit up too bright, like it didn't want you to feel comfortable. The folding chairs creaked under suspicion. The coffee tasted like it was brewed by someone who resented both caffeine and happiness. It was packed that night, way more people than usual. Gloria had drummed up attendance, and she was thrilled. I could see it in her smile as she counted heads. She looked like someone who had spent the whole week prepping for a big presentation. "We have some important community business to discuss tonight," she announced, scanning the room with that smug, satisfied expression she wore when she thought she was about to teach someone a lesson. When my agenda item came up, Gloria launched into performance mode. She gave this dramatic speech about the importance of following HOA procedures, about how residents shouldn't go behind the board's back to outside authorities. She made it sound like I'd betrayed the community by calling the county over a legitimate safety issue. When residents choose to involve outside authorities instead of working with their elected HOA board, she said, giving me the disappointed parent look, it reflects poorly on all of us and can even affect property values. People nodded. You could see her gaining steam. She painted me as the troublemaker, the one who didn't respect the process, the one who made life harder for everyone else. Her tone was like a teacher scolding a 5-year-old. Only I wasn't 5. And she was the one who'd removed government stickers. Then she went for the throat. Connor Blake decided that his minor fence complaint was more important than community standards, she said, like she was reading formal charges. Instead of being patient and working with the HOA like everyone else, he called county code enforcement and brought government inspectors into our neighborhood. From the way she said it, you'd think I'd invited a biker gang to squat in the rec room. Neighbors turned to look at me, some with disappointment, some with confusion, and I realized I may have underestimated just how good Gloria was at controlling the story. But here's the thing about truth. It has a way of slipping through the cracks, even when someone's trying to bury it in red tape. I come prepared, nothing flashy, just the facts, photos of the damage, a timeline of my attempts to resolve it through proper channels. When Gloria finally gave me the floor, probably expecting me to stumble, I started with the basics. I brought this to the HOA board at 4 consecutive meetings over 4 months, I said, showing images of the water damage creeping into my foundation. Each time, I was told it wasn't a priority, or wasn't in the budget. People began to listen, really listen. Then I showed the photos taken by Inspector Johnson, the same issues I'd flagged for months. The room got quiet. This wasn't cosmetic. This was structural. And it didn't just affect me. It could affect them too. The inspector placed official warning notices, I added, requiring these violations be fixed within 30 days. Then I played my ace. I didn't just show the video. I live-streamed the entire meeting to the neighborhood Facebook group, the same platform where Gloria once banned decorative plastic plants. And for the first time, the spotlight turned back to her. Over 20 people were watching live, and the number kept climbing every second. I watched as Gloria removed the county stickers in broad daylight, carefully peeling off official notices and tossing them into the trash like they were nothing more than flyers. Someone whispered, "Did she really just tear down government stickers?" Another voice shouted, "That's destruction of public property." Frank Thompson, the retired teacher, stood up and slammed his hand on the table. When Frank speaks, people listen. The man had taught 3 generations in this neighborhood. If he said the sky was green, half the block would be painting their houses emerald. I propose we suspend Mrs. Whitlow immediately until this matter is clarified, he said. Everything after that was like dominoes. Every eye turned from me and landed on Gloria, trembling slightly in her plastic chair. Someone in the back gasped. A woman in the front row whispered, "Oh my God." Even a guy who always wore socks with sandals leaned forward like it was a courtroom drama. The room fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. These were the same neighbors who nodded along when Gloria talked about proper procedures, and now they were watching her break the law on camera. I saw Gloria's face morph from confident to confused to panicked as she realized what everyone was seeing. One neighbor said, "I used to trust Mrs. Whitlow's judgment on community matters. Now I'm not so sure." That's when the shift happened. Her carefully built image started to crumble. People had elected her because they thought she had good judgment. But now they were watching video evidence of her ripping down government notices because she thought they were ugly. The questions came fast. Why didn't you read the sticker? Don't you know it's illegal to remove county notices? What other rules has the HOA ignored under your watch? Gloria tried to regain control, talking about how the stickers were ugly and hurt neighborhood aesthetics. But every defense made it worse. Each time she spoke, someone hit back with a question that made her look reckless. The woman who built her reputation on rules and order had just been caught breaking the law, on video, because she didn't like how something looked. It was like watching a house of cards fall in slow motion. Years of authority collapsing right there in that community center. She stopped speaking after that, just sat in silence while the meeting moved on to other topics. People started talking about the need for new HOA leadership. I left the meeting feeling like I'd won something, though not the way I'd imagined. It wasn't about revenge or proving I was right about the fence. It was about the truth finally coming out. But as I looked back and saw Gloria still sitting there alone, I wondered, was this the end of the war or just the beginning? After that disastrous HOA meeting, Gloria changed, and not in a good way. Gone was the composed, controlled HOA president. In her place was someone desperate to claw back power. Within a week, she proposed the most ridiculous community rules I'd ever seen. Rules so petty, they made her earlier regulations seem reasonable. She started banning flags. Yes, flags. As if red, white, and blue were somehow a threat to suburban order. She targeted American flags, holiday decorations, even those little garden flags with sunflowers. When neighbors pushed back at the next board meeting, she claimed it was about property values. But everyone could see it was about one thing: control. And then the parking situation got weird. And I mean weird. She started parking her car just slightly into my driveway space. Not enough to warrant a tow truck, but enough to make me do a 3-point turn every time I wanted into my garage. It added 10 minutes to a 2-minute task. When I confronted her, she'd play innocent. "Oh, sorry, didn't even notice." Then she'd move her car barely, just enough to technically fix the issue while sending a clear message. This wasn't over. It was like psychological warfare, HOA edition. Then came the fake violation notices. That's when her desperation really showed. I started receiving official-looking letters from the HOA citing nonsense violations: mailbox placement, hose visibility, trash bin timing. All petty things no one else got flagged for. None of them were actual violations. Gloria just wanted to drown me in paperwork and make my life miserable. But instead of intimidating me, it made her look bitter and vindictive. So I started documenting everything. Every violation notice. Every weird parking stunt. Every bogus rule change. I saved it all, time-stamped, photographed, backed up on my computer. I even installed extra security cameras. I wasn't being paranoid. I was being prepared. I did wonder if recording her at the HOA meeting had been too much. But then my camera would ping at 2 a.m., and there she was in my yard, checking my sprinkler system, measuring grass height with a ruler. And then came her big move. 3 weeks after the HOA disaster, Gloria filed a formal complaint with the county. She claimed I had created fake county notices and placed them on the fence myself just to humiliate her. According to her, I orchestrated the entire thing, a fake sticker conspiracy, as part of a harassment campaign. It made no sense. None. But desperation will do that. When I got the email from the county asking to discuss her complaint, my hands shook. Was this how it ended? Was I about to get framed by the very person who got caught breaking the law? I spent the weekend prepping, organizing every file, every video, every photo. I was mad, but more than that, I was curious. How far would she take this fantasy? By Monday, I wasn't sure whether I'd been foolish to ever fight the system. Maybe I should have just lived with the water damage and moved on. The county office was one of those sterile places that smelled like cleaning supplies and toner. Inside were Inspector Johnson and a sharp-eyed woman from the county legal department, Miss Sarah Peterson. She opened a thick folder. "We need to discuss the complaint filed by Mrs. Whitlow," she said calmly. "She alleges you created fake documents and placed them on the shared fence property to embarrass her." Inspector Johnson added, "She claims the notices were fabricated and you removed them yourself before filing your complaint." I nearly laughed. The idea that I faked government warnings to play HOA drama queen was beyond absurd. But then Peterson dropped a bombshell. Her complaint forced us to reinvestigate the entire case, including the original inspection. She opened a second, thicker folder. Inside were maps, blueprints, and documents I'd never seen. "We found a significant water pipe leak beneath the fence," Johnson said. "The leak has caused substantial damage to the community's infrastructure." I was still processing that when Peterson hit me with another, "Mrs. Whitlow refused a county infrastructure survey last year because it would affect her landscaping. That delay allowed the damage to get worse." I asked her to repeat it. I couldn't believe it. Gloria had rejected a survey that might have caught the leak because she was worried about her rose garden. Peterson confirmed it with an official document. Gloria had filed multiple complaints about the survey. Eventually, the county canceled the inspection for that section. The irony? The woman obsessed with property values had just damaged everyone's property value. Johnson showed me photos of the corroded pipes. The damage wasn't just beneath our fence. It extended throughout the neighborhood. Dozens of homes affected. "Mrs. Whitlow will be responsible for the full repair cost," Peterson said. Then came the final blow. Due to her obstruction of county operations, she's being removed from all HOA positions, effective immediately. And her property is now under ongoing county compliance review. The Queen of Curb appeal had been dethroned by the actual government. The meeting lasted another hour. The best part? My fence would be fixed for free as part of the broader infrastructure project. Drainage, utilities, a full upgrade I could never have afforded. The county even dropped her fines, not out of mercy, but because the repair bill made them irrelevant. That afternoon, a moving truck was in Gloria's driveway. As I pulled weeds, she walked over. Her makeup was smudged, hair messy. She looked like someone who finally saw the writing on the wall. "You got what you wanted?" she said, not angry, just tired. "Gloria, I just wanted my fence fixed," I told her. And I meant it. She looked at the house, at the boxes at the fence. "Those stupid stickers," she muttered. "If I just left them alone." I looked her in the eye. Sometimes the ugliest things are there to protect us from something worse. For the first time, I think she understood. 3 weeks later, Gloria moved into an apartment with no HOA. Probably for the best. Yesterday, while cleaning my garage, I found one last sticker behind toolbox. I didn't throw it away. I framed it. Underneath, I wrote, "Ugly doesn't mean unimportant." What did I learn from all this? That sometimes the system works if you work with it instead of against it. And that the person who thinks they're the smartest in the room might be digging their own grave, one stubborn choice at a time. Gloria thought those stickers were trash. She cared so much about how things looked that she forgot to ask why they were there. But those stickers? They weren't just warnings. They were truth. And truth doesn't care if it clashes with your landscaping.